Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we continue our calls for each Primarch being the greatest, with Angron. General spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned, and with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. So Angron. While he may have had a great and very tragic story, I'm not too sure there's many people out there calling him the greatest Primarch of all. But hey, I'm up for a challenge. Honestly, when you think about it, is there truly a Primarch who has overcome as much as Angron? Is there a Primarch who has had the odds so stacked against him and yet still lived? Do we actually take the slave of Nuceria for granted? I think we might, overshadowed perhaps by the demon he would later become. But let's state the facts. From the very moment Angron's pod landed upon Nuceria, he was attacked by the Eldari, desperate to eliminate this Primarch whilst they could. Sure, the Eldar had seen the visions of bloodshed surrounding Angron's future, but it's these actions that they would take that forever altered Angron's possible destiny. Still barely a child, unknowing of the world around him, Angron defeated his would-be murderers before fleeing, wounded and terrified, where he would be immediately found and captured by Nuceria's native population of slavers. And that was it. That was Angron's total experience and life. Being free. A few moments of terrified confusion and bloodshed. After that, he would awaken within the gladiator pits, where he would be forced to battle for his life daily for entertainment. I mean, he literally awoke in an arena filling with acid, burning people around him, where he's got no idea who they are or what's going on. As most Primarchs were learning and experiencing their worlds, understanding what it meant to be human, Angron was trying to make sense of the universe through the prison of this insanity. And yet still that connection of what it means to be human found him. As he grew, surviving the arenas, in this time amongst his fellow slaves, between the nightmare battles for survival, Angron found the closest thing to a father he would ever know, in an older slave named Oenimus. But even that would be denied to the young Primarch. Refusing to fight Oenimus within the arena, Angron would be punished with the Butcher's Nails, the ancient device surgically implanted into his brain, amplifying and overriding his mind with a blinding rage. Mutilated, butchered in this way, Angron's first action would be to slaughter his friend and father figure, Oenimus, causing such a hurt, guilt, and grief when he regained his senses that his scream would last for days. And despite all of this tragedy, this trial, Angron would lead a revolt, assembling his fellow slaves and battling their way out to freedom. A war of hardship would follow that would last for several years, until finally they would be surrounded by 7 vast armies, and death would be inevitable. And the legend from here is well known. It would be now that the Emperor would arrive, offering Angron the chance to join his crusade, to fulfill his destiny in forging the Imperium, to which Angron would say no, choosing to remain, to die alongside his fellow slaves. And thus the Emperor would take Angron against his wishes, teleporting him aboard his vessel, psychically subduing the Primarch as he raged and slaughtered custodians, before immediately sending the Primarch off to his legion. Now, I'll admit, this moment needs a bit more development really, as it doesn't quite make sense from the Angron point of view that we have. Even the coldest, uncaring moments of the Emperor we've seen in the lore generally do make sense. But here, him instantly teleporting Angron off to his legion without explanation and expecting him to get on with the job, bearing in mind he's just slaughtered custodians and declared his hatred to the Emperor's face, well, it's all a bit odd. Especially when we have seen how long every other Primarch has spent before going to their legion. They required education, instruction. Even the ones who didn't get along with the Emperor, such as Jagatai or Mortarion. However, as it is, as the lore stands, Angron is the only Primarch who took command of a legion without any training or education whatsoever. So that makes Angron completely unique. And of course it wasn't smooth sailing. Angron, unable to truly process any emotion not overridden by anger, abandoned his legion, being brought back only by Khan, and he ordered decimation when they failed to achieve his objective. 1 in 10 World Eaters being slaughtered by his brothers. Angron's brutal lesson from the gladiator pits of Nuceria. And then of course he had the butcher's nails implanted across the legion, filling his sons with the same rage that encompassed him. And yet still, despite all of this, Angron successfully led the legion across the galaxy, played a role in the Great Crusade, eviscerating the enemies of mankind. Sure, Angron's campaigns were massacres, but he achieved victory, which, let's be honest here, was the main purpose of the legions. No Primarch can match everything Angron had to go through. It is an unbelievable tale of tragedy, of suffering, and yet despite it all, he still emerged to lead a legion. It might not have been in the way planned, but he survived to fulfill the duty, the role, and that deserves respect. The Night of the Wolf incident against Leman Russ, despite a clear lesson trying to be imparted onto Angron, ended up with Angron standing over the Wolf King. And in the Istvan massacre, Angron was a wrecking ball that could not be stopped. The Raven Lord Korax certain he wouldn't be able to defeat his brother. And then within the Shadow Crusade, Angron faced Guilliman, battering him relentlessly, prevented from killing him only by Lorgar's ritual, ascending him to demonhood. And we saw Angron holding up the weight of an entire Titan, bearing the weight upon his shoulders to save his brother Lorgar's life. He was quite simply an absolute beast. Honestly, way better off prior to his ascension. And as many as the other Primarchs may have claimed they could easily beat Angron due to his anger, I think they all would have found the reality of that claim very different indeed. Thanks to the Butcher's Nails, Angron was a Primarch that was pushed beyond the boundaries of limit, his rage emboldening him with a limitless fury. And in all of it, we have to keep in mind, Angron performed as a broken Primarch, denied thanks to those nails, and to a lesser degree his life experiences, becoming the Primarch he was meant to be. Angron displayed the psychic ability upon Nuceria to somehow calm a fellow slave having a nightmare, being able to draw emotional and physical pain into himself from others, implying to me he was far more destined to be some form of empath or healer than the blood-fueled warrior he ended up. A Primarch far more closer to a Vulcan in nature than the madman he became. So again, as I said, given all of it, given everything Angron had to overcome, isn't he in truth the greatest of all the Primarchs? Let the others have their glory, their pomp and circumstance of victory, because in the true tale of greatness, it's the odds stacked against you that matter. But as always everyone, what do you think? Is the story of everything that Angron had to overcome the only evidence we really need that he is the greatest of all the Primarchs? Isn't it the overcoming of obstacles that makes greatness? That despite everything that stood in Angron's way, he still emerged living, breathing, fighting. Isn't he the only Primarch who never got the chance to be the Primarch he was meant to be? Or do you disagree that just because Angron overcame tragedy, that doesn't mean he was great, and that his tales of overcoming adversity don't measure up to the more spectacular feats of his brothers? That Angron simply wasn't great? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.